The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Well, I've challenged a number of people who've been on my show that have told me either on the record or off the record that they believe that the birth certificate is legit and they don't believe there's a problem. And so usually off the record, I'll say, well, how about I send you some stuff? And I'll send them links to some of the things you've done and, some of the computer experts I've worked with, Mara Zabest, Carl Denninger, Albert Renshaw, who unfortunately is in Israel right now and won't be able to be on today. But there's a couple of responses. Either their jaw drops when they look at it, or they won't make contact with me again.
There you go. Those are the two choices that I run into, too.
They don't want to have to admit that they've seen
that they got conned. They don't want to admit that they've been scammed, and the government is going down the tubes because they fell for a line.
Well, the government's going down the tubes in a lot of ways, but this is certainly one of them. So, if you had to make a prediction as to where all this was going to end up, where do you, as someone who's been a licensed private investigator for a long time, involved with a lot of cases, a lot of trials, where do you see this going in the future, based on your experience?
If we could find someone in Congress with the courage to push this issue, and all they would have to do, to settle the entire issue about the Social Security number.
What would it take?
It would take a subpoena for the SS5 for the number that Barack Obama uses. That's all it would take. One subpoena. And when it better have a Connecticut address on it, and if it did, I would be in Connecticut so fast I would find everybody that lived there in 1977. I would be all over the place interviewing people.
Well, it's interesting, Susan. Barack Obama and I are almost the same age. There's this weird collection of us, Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, Sarah Palin, Barack Obama, and the lesser-known Mark Millar, and we're all about the same age. And I got to tell you, I have pictures of myself at the hospital. I have pictures of myself the minute I got home in my parents' tiny apartment, with my grandparents. I have numerous documents that can prove that I was there. We've got the little footprints that the hospitals did back then. There's just so much documentation that I was born in Bryan, Texas, that my parents were there, my grandparents, well, obviously my mother had to be there, but my grandparents were there, and I haven't seen anything that shows all the normal stuff that kids our age had, that he was born, in America, in Hawaii. It's so funny because my background is so similar to Barack Obama's. I can show you photographs at Christmas of Barack Obama riding the exact same tricycle that I'm riding in a Christmas picture that was probably about the same time. Now, what's interesting is that he was riding a blue tricycle and I was riding a red one. So even back then, the fact that he would end up a Democrat and I would end up a Republican was pretty obvious. The bottom line is my background is similar to this guy. I know when most of us open our document chest what kind of things should be in that file saying this is who I am, and he doesn't have any of that.
Especially, he's an only child. Usually in families, the first child, there's 1 trillion pictures, and as the families increase in size, the numbers of photographs diminish.
My mother's baby book, I hate to say this, but there's a baby book for me and a baby book for my brother who was born 4 years later.
And it's just probably half the size.
Yeah, it's so over the top, man. Every time I cried, every time I burped, it's in that baby book. That's how focused parents are on that first kid. And for him to be an only child, and it's like, you got any pictures at the hospital? Nah. Got any pictures? Got any pictures of the grandparents holding the baby? Nah.
No.
What do you? Do you have anything? Little footprints? No, none of that stuff.
No.
So, I realize the guy's had somewhat of a chaotic life. His mom's kind of gone through men in a pretty fast pace. Moved around. He was all over the place, including Pakistan at a time when most people wouldn't have wanted to go there. But the bottom line is, this guy has nothing to document.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there's plenty to document. They just don't want us to see it.
Okay.
What gets me is the photoshopped pictures that they put out regarding him. There's an interesting one that shows him allegedly sitting on a park bench with his grandparents. But the hand of the grandfather doesn't match up. Now, when you remove Barack Obama from between them, the hand, his arm looks about 4 feet long in the one picture, but you remove him from it, and he's sitting there with his wife. Now, one that's really obvious is allegedly him in Punahou on the basketball team. And it shows a picture. He's sitting right in the middle. But if you can find that picture, he looks like a giant next to Lilliputians. They put him in too big compared to the size of the rest of the kids. Why would anybody find it necessary to Photoshop those kinds of pictures and put them out there as though they're legitimate?
I know you haven't had death threats and you haven't had really any type of threat, but
no.
Other people on the show today have. And my question would be, if you're a Barack Obama supporter and you really believe that he was born in Hawaii where he said he was, delivered by the doctor that's on the birth certificate, and that there are no issues here, instead of making death threats to people who want to see the documentation, why would you not be saying, yes, please, Mr. President, show them the documentation and get this over with. I know you're legit. I know those documents exist. Go ahead and show us and show these stupid birthers that they're wrong. Why wouldn't you be doing that instead of making death threats and photoshopping pictures and putting out fake Kenyan birth certificates? I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, why wouldn't you be doing those things? Why wouldn't you be?
You would. A normal person would. They'd say, let's nip this in the bud. At the first time the question was asked, you show them everything.
You mean like John McCain?
What do you have to hide?
You mean like John McCain did? It's so funny because we're all a bunch of racists because we wanted to see Barack Obama's documentation, but when Democrats wanted to see John McCain's, he just coughed it up and nipped it in the bud.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know what? I love the line. The only people that have something are those with something to hide. I love that. Every video on Obama starts out that way.
Yeah, that's a nice video, a little intro they've put together for those videos.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And it's absolutely true. If you have nothing to hide, then tell the truth. But he's hidden everything for 3 years now. And it ought to make people very, very nervous.
Well, one of the things that Dr. Corsi said a few minutes ago, and I've heard it from a lot of people, and I'll add to this, we've seen this before in history, is that a lot of people would rather see whoever the Republican nominee is face a wounded Barack Obama, who's responsible for a horrible economy and all the different mistakes he's made since he's been in office. They'd rather see the Republican candidate face a wounded Barack Obama with not really a good leg to stand on in the general election than have to face Hillary Clinton. And we saw this back during the Clinton years because the Republicans in the House impeached Clinton, as you know, but the Senate didn't want to do their job and actually move.
Oh, no, they voted 100-0 not to do anything about it.
And the reason for that was they didn't want to see Al Gore jump into office, suddenly look very presidential, and be a much more formidable opponent in the next presidential election. And I think we're seeing some of that here. I think there are a lot of people up on the Hill who know that this background is fake, that the Social Security card is fake, that the birth certificate is fake, and they don't want to touch this subject, not because they're trying to protect Barack Obama, but that instead they believe he's going to be easy to defeat in 2012, and they want to keep a weak candidate in office.
But in the meantime, every day that goes by, he causes more problems for the country. I think he needs to be stopped now.
I agree.
And they're worried about there's going to be chaos if he's removed from office. He not only ought to be removed from office, he ought to be charged with treason.
Well, my thought is, and a gentleman I know here locally perhaps put it best whenever I told him that, or actually his wife conveyed that to him after I told her. She wrote me back and said, well, Mark, my husband wants to know, does that mean we have to all go out and vote for Barack Obama because if he's not reelected, there's going to be chaos? Where do we draw the line on looking the other way in order to prevent chaos? Well, listen, Susan, we're out of time, but I want to thank you for being here today. God bless you for what you've been doing. God bless you for having the courage to stand up and speak the truth. And we look forward to staying in touch with you and having you keep us updated. And I've got a feeling that when it's all said and done in the annals of history, we're going to see your name there among the people that were responsible for getting this imposter out of office.
Well, thank you. I'm not so sure about that, but all I know is I'm doing what I feel is the right thing to do.
Well, that's more than we can say for every member of Congress and every member of the media, so thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Mark, and thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
Thank you.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.